Hi, and welcome to Still Evolving, where we explore the truth behind lasting performance and resilience. Rather than relying on perfection or superhuman ability, our conversation will highlight how real strength emerges through simple, intentional habits grounded in self compassion, adaptability, and the ability to grow through life's inevitable setbacks. Today, we're joined by Annie Estrella, a seasoned medical writing leader with more than 20 years of experience in pharma and biotech. Annie earned a BS in biology with a minor in music from Bates College and later completed her MS in health communication from Boston University. Throughout her career, she has built and led 6 successful medical writing teams, and she now serves as the Vice President of Medical Writing at Beam Therapeutics, a cutting-edge gene therapy company based in Cambridge, Massachusetts. Outside of work, Annie enjoys life on the North Shore with her teenage daughter and 2 cats, and you can often find her running, swimming, traveling, or catching concerts and comedy shows. I'm thrilled to welcome Annie to the show. Annie, welcome to Still Evolving. Grateful for your time and share back on your journey and the lessons learned. Just real excited to have this conversation and learn from you today.
Thank you so much for having me.
Awesome. Why don't we just start off by giving you some time to share back on your journey? Like, talk a little bit about where you came from, what you're doing now, even the motivations that have fueled you along the way.
Sure. I was born in Boston, actually. Grew up mostly in New Hampshire. I was always a very ambitious person. I loved school. I loved all the subjects that I studied. Played the violin from age 6. So I was really into music too. And I think, I had great mentors in my parents. They were both really hard workers. Even my violin teacher, she was so strict, but I think it helped me learn discipline very early on. So I just was always very hungry and ambitious to learn as much as I could. And my parents, like I said, were very hardworking. So I always had different jobs growing up. I like to try different things. I tried all the different sports. Was not always great at them, but at least I tried. Theater, French, club, all the different honor societies. I just love to try it all and do it all. And I think halfway through college, I sort of had this moment where I was like, okay, I can't do it all. I have to choose
Yeah.
something. So science was always really interesting to me. I learned that there was science writing was a career. And I thought, wow, that's amazing. So halfway through college, I just decided that that would be my path. Stopped doing all the music stuff I was doing, which was probably too much, but still managed to majored in biology, minored in music. So I had a lot of great experiences and almost right after graduating became a medical writer. A lot of people don't know what that is, but we write the documents that are needed for running a clinical study and then the report when it's done. Gosh, I've been a medical writer probably over 20 years now, 21 years.
Yeah.
And I've just sort of climbed up. I got a management experience very early and I've always really liked working with people, but I also love writing. So it's sort of balancing between the two. And I've got to build a lot of great teams over the years, which has been really fun and fulfilling. And I've sort of arrived at this place that I always thought I would get to maybe in another 20 years. But it's amazing to be here now. And I work for a place called Beam Therapeutics, which is really cool science, cutting edge, gene editing, so gene therapy for some really interesting disease areas. I love what I do and, I could talk about it forever, but great, to have this opportunity and other leadership experiences too has been really nice and life-changing.
I appreciate you going way back. Honestly, like, I think so much of our life's journeys are shaping us and then also kind of inform us on the next turn, like what we're up to next. Along the way, if only there was a life that wasn't impacted like by adversity or challenge, the life's punch in the gut, if you will. I'm just curious if you wouldn't mind sharing what challenges have you found along the way, or maybe even as an executive leader now, working with your team, what challenges have you experienced or are currently experiencing? And then also, what have you learned from it? What helps you navigate and grow through the challenge?
Yeah. Well, at first I thought of personal challenges, and there's always work challenges too. And you learn that as a human, you kind of deal with them similarly, whether it's work or personal, and you can learn from each area. I think in my life, there's 2 big ones that stand out. As I mentioned, I had great mentors in my parents. I had a great family life. I was so fortunate that they were so supportive. I had a brother who I was very close with, and he actually passed away when we were both in our early 20s.
Mm.
So my whole life had been, with him by my side, everything, all the family vacations, and we were such a close knit family. When something like that happens, when it's unexpected, he was only
Hmm.
21. It's so impactful. And, we could either crumble or we could move on. And, we took our time. I think it was important to pause and talk about it and reflect on what he meant to us and that he'll always be with us. And then all of us just kind of threw ourselves back into work and we had to keep going in our lives, meaning me and my parents and the rest of the family and friends. But always pausing to remember and reflect is important. And I think things like that make you stronger as a person. And I could bring some of those skills that I needed to develop to get through hard times, I could bring to work. And my parents did too. And it helped that my father was a clinical psychologist. So he could kind of
Okay.
talk us through that and, would always check in whether I was, a kid or even now. How's your mental health? And that part is really important in leadership too. I mean, the teams that I've built, a lot of it is sort of interpersonal relationships and how do you
Hmm.
help people get through tough times, whether it's in the workplace or even personal life that kind of comes into the workplace. So I think that I became stronger from that experience. And then the other big thing that happened was I got married kind of young and divorced, and then became a single parent doing most of everything. And that's really hard too. I mean, you don't know what these things are like until they happen to you, the death of a loved one and a divorce. Man, I mean, now I know what people mean when they say you can get stronger from difficult situations.
Hmm.
So just wanting to be a good role model for my daughter, seen as a strong leader at work. I think again, it's important to let yourself pause for these things that are difficult, but then know that you have to keep moving. And there's still so many great aspects of life that I've always appreciated. The
Hmm.
tough times are always there, but there's always also something to be grateful for. I think experiences like that too kind of remind you that you're only human and everyone sort of suffers in their own way, and being able to relate to your team at work and whether it's coworkers or other leaders, it's helpful for them to see that you're human too.
Hmm.
Being able to kind of speak openly about difficult things helps people to kind of build trust with you and show that we can all be vulnerable.
Absolutely. I mean, first off, wow, thank you so much for the strength and your willingness to share. I think oftentimes the interplay between the challenges we have, the adversity we have in our personal lives, you made the point. The reality is the challenge, the details of the challenge may look different in professional space as opposed to personal. And yet, certainly, we're all human. So we have the human emotion, the reactions that are normal to loss, whether that may be a significant aspect in your professional life or in your personal life. We also have kind of how that impact of that stress or the loss could impact even how we think about things, how we relate to others, how we are problem solving. And to hear you share how you first paused and just gave yourself that space and that time. It sounds like your father and others around you, your loved ones, those connections really helped facilitate that. And it was okay, right? I think sometimes I come earlier in my career from the sport world where it's just kind of like, suck it up. I come from the Gen Xer where, a lot of our coaches, or perhaps maybe your violin coach, I'm not sure, but it's just kind of like put your head down and grind, right? And what gets lost in that is the human system, and we do have the emotional reaction first. And how can we give it space? And then I loved how you shared there still is a transition back to living. Like we have to get back in that game, if you will, whatever, if it's professionally in the role of being a single parent, which holds a special place in my heart. And I can very much relate to those details. Also being a single parent. At the end of the day, we have to get back in the game. So how do you navigate that transition, still carrying that pain or that loss and wanting to still show up maybe for the people that you love or your team at work and be a strong leader? So yes, thank you for sharing wonderful reminders there. I'm curious how you tap that power of connection now as an executive leader, maybe the role of mentors or coaches or just other colleagues in your network. Who do you find support from and learning from now with the challenges of present day?
Yeah, it's a good question, especially since I work from home most of the time. I think that's been a challenge because there's less opportunity to connect with people, especially in
Hmm.
person. So I try to go in when I can for big meetings. And I know that that FaceTime and just being there in person with people is so important. And I
Hmm.
always think, oh, I'm so used to working at home. I might resist that at first, but after I've gone through, an office day, I always think, oh, it's really great to be there to connect with
Hmm.
people and just even share personal tidbits about our lives that have nothing to do with work. It just helps you
Yeah.
to build that relationship to have a stronger working relationship too going forward. But I think, I've been fortunate in my career where I've found good writers along the way who then may join me at a future job. So, for example, I have a person on my team now who's been on two other teams that I've led. So, this is our
Oh,
third
wow.
time working together. And so, finding those people who, are really talented and good, but also have good people skills and you can trust, I think that's been a really big part of my career. And it sort of just makes work more fun and
Yeah.
easier knowing that there's someone there by your side who you trust and work well with. And I always feel like it's important to work with good managers too. Managers can be such a big part of your work life, and finding someone who's supportive and understands you is critical, I think. And I'm
Hmm.
fortunate now to have such a great boss who is also a huge inspiration. And also at my last company, I was part of this thing called Women Unlimited, and
Hmm.
it was a way to sort of help women leaders find their voice and, sort of grow their confidence. And it was really nice to be a part of that. It sort of had a built-in mentor program, and I still keep in touch with people who I met through that. So,
Oh, very
having the
cool.
opportunity to do things like that is, at first you might think, oh, I don't have time or whatnot, but it's always so worth it. And just networking with people in
Hmm.
the industry. I just actually went to the American Medical Writers Association annual conference. We call it
Okay.
AMWOF. And it's tough to find good sessions there, sort of now that I've been in the industry for so long because it's a lot
Hmm.
geared towards younger people, but they're starting to have more opportunities for leaders. So the executive forum that I went to there was fantastic. And again, just networking with people who do what I do is great
Hmm.
because that's not a thing that I get to do very often. So I really try to take advantage of those opportunities when I can because it's good to build those relationships too and learn from each other.
I love hearing about, first off, it doesn't just happen, right? You have to kind of step, even when you're uncomfortable, into the connections, right? And that the mentor program that you described for women executives at your previous company, it sounds fantastic. First off, a lot of times when I'm talking with people, I'll hear most commonly the reasons why are time or money, right? Like, oh, my calendar's I just don't have bandwidth right now to kind of take on a professional development X, Y, and Z. The ROI on that is just so great, right? It's just to support you in the present, but also what you're describing is like the creation and then the opportunity to strengthen relationships throughout your career. Reminds me, there was a group of us that came together um, in the early 2000s, and there was only like 22 of us. I was in sport at the time, sports psychologists at the table, and now that same meeting garners over 150 sports psychologists each year. And you're right, your needs change as you grow in your career as an executive. And at the end of the day, like even when those meetings happen now, I don't know necessarily if I go back for the content. Like you said, you're at a different point in your career, but the value that comes in being able to connect with the people, and those people who have become not just colleagues but friends, becomes incredibly powerful. But you do have to kind of take the action even when you're uncomfortable. Like you said, the return to the office, making time, prioritizing that opportunity for networking is so crucial. Through all this, I guess one thing that popped in my mind in the balancing the professional but also being a single mom is sometimes I'm just tired. Sometimes I just grind. I'm like, I am really tired right now. And I played sport a really long time. And I don't know if I ever felt this tired, but I'm feeling tired. How do you continue to grow, to evolve now as an executive leader of teams, certainly in this field that's incredibly passionate, has a lot of meaning and you love doing also stepping in as a mom, raising a daughter. What helps fuel you? Like what helps you recover, or what have you found value of recovery to be able to sustain this over such a long period of time?
Yeah, it's a good question. And especially I feel now I need to take more time for pausing or self care, just relax as I get older too. Sort of can't push myself as hard as I used to in my 20s and 30s, which is an adjustment you have to make, but it's okay. Once you get used to it, you figure out your body. But since I do a lot, but I also sit at a desk a lot, I find it
Mhm.
necessary to move every day. So I probably go running almost every day, um,
Okay.
which isn't necessarily relaxing, but it's a good way to de-stress.
Hmm.
And if my body's not feeling able to do it on every few weeks or so, I'll go for a fast walk or something. But moving, I think, is important, especially for somebody who has a desk job, though I do have a sit-stand desk here, which is helpful too. But I also found that things like meditation or even going for a slower walk, that's really helpful too. If I'm stressed on a certain day or have too much to do and feel overwhelmed, even just standing up, moving a little bit, and doing some breathing can really make such a big difference with your mental load and how
Hmm.
you feel it in your body too, since there's such a connection. But I find, I'm such an overthinker too that I feel it in my brain and my body. So if I can just sort of take the action to get up and walk away from the desk, but
Hmm.
also clear my mind, just even if it's for a minute or 5 minutes, that can make such a big difference. And then I can go back and feel refreshed. So I think if I'm ever feeling overwhelmed, if I just kind of step away and do something different and stop thinking, then that
Yeah.
that helps quite a bit. But
It's
yeah,
it's
even
such a helpful reminder, right? All of us doers, right? Sometimes pausing and reflecting, meditating, or doing an activity outside of what we would say fits to this like described outcome that I'm drilling for, like a project paper or a presentation, whatever I'm working on for work, stepping away from that desk. It reminds me when I worked with elite athletes, um, and they too are really rehearsed at I'm just going to go out and I'm going to put up 1,000 shots, or I'm going to get into the weight room, or I'm going to get back on the road and run XYZ pace. And believe it or not, I challenged them one day. I was working with an athlete and I looked at her and I said, "So you must be being lazy. You're being lazy." And she like looks at me like none of us, right? Like us high achievers, grinders, ever want to be called being, lazy. She's like, "What are you talking about?" She's like, I've worked out every day. I'm not being lazy. And I was like, yeah, you're being lazy. Because actually, to work out would be to have a recovery day. To work out would be to take that moment and step away from the docks, go for the walk, not the run, just because you're picking up and you're reading your body's signals need that fast walk instead of a run. Or taking even like in real doses, closing your eyes or just taking some deep breaths for 2 minutes before jumping back on Zoom for the next meeting, right? Any of those habits that aren't as automatic as putting your head down and just pushing for one more hour to get this one more email or project across, um, that's the hard work. That's where, it really does take that shift. Now that we see the data so apparent about the role of recovery and wellness as a foundation for performance, right? We know that actually the quality of our decisions, the ability to creatively problem solve and come back to the table with even just a little micro dose of recovery built in, it's just the data is very clear. So thank you for offering that sometimes you just got to get up and move. All of us in these chairs got to get up and move. Wrapping up, besides exercise, what's an immediate and actionable takeaway? Something that you find in your doing in your daily routine that helps you stay grounded through life's journeys, life's adventures professionally, as a mother, friend. What helps you each day? Is there something that you'd like to leave the audience with?
Yeah, I mean, there's so many things I could say, but I can sort of get wrapped up sometimes in my work, and hours will go by, and I'll think, oh my gosh, I haven't moved my body, and I don't even know how long. And that's good. I mean, getting into sort of the flow is awesome. But like you said, there's so much more to life than just, getting so wrapped up in the work. So I would say, it's funny. I used to keep a list of things that really made me happy by my desk. So if I ever felt like I needed just a little pick me up or something, I could just look at it and pick one and do it. So anything like, listen to a really upbeat song or go for a quick run or, call a friend or do something kind of random, but that always makes me happy. And really, I mean, running always makes me happy. So that's like an easy one. You just sort of grab your shoes
Yeah.
and go. But sometimes, the power of music. I grew up, like I said, playing the violin. I love music. So just putting on a song that I know I love, like a pop song usually,
Yeah.
will really make me feel very happy. And sometimes you just need that little break to do something quick that really lifts your spirits
Yeah.
and lets you keep going with a great attitude. I think, what do they say? One negative thing can really throw you off quite a bit, but a positive or showing gratitude for something really can change your day. So, yeah, the
Absolutely.
power of music or just moving your body is important
Yeah.
for me.
We encourage everyone to find their list. Find a couple things, make a note, just grab one little daily boost. It's great.
Yeah.
Thank you, Annie. So appreciate you sharing and joining us today. Wonderful learning from you. So thank you.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been great.